Hello and welcome to our Digging Up the Dead Christmas special.
This episode is slightly different to the previous episodes in that this time we aren't introducing Herbie to a forgotten unknown classic.
Or reviewing a family-friendly one.
No, this is going to be one of our first special episodes where we look at a film that both of us know very well and love.
We have a small selection of films we're both obsessed with and have seen too many times to even pretend it's new to us. These films are regular go-to movies, so we pretty much know them word for word.
These are films we spent probably way too much time with and probably way too much money on.
For the first special episode, and since it's Christmas when we record this, there can only be one movie we could possibly do.
Some say Christmas doesn't start until Hans Gruber falls from the 30th floor of the Nakatomi Plaza. We say it doesn't start till Mrs. Deagle comes flying out of her upstairs window on her modified stair lift.
So fill up your drinks from the Peltzer Peeler Juicer.
Put out your smokeless ashtray and put down your copy of The Hooded Menace.
And join us in what our opinion is the greatest Christmas movie of all time,
Gremlins. Okay, so Gremlins. It's a movie that's been on my all-time top 5 for as long as I can remember having a top 5. Honestly, I can't even remember a time when I didn't love this movie.
So years ago, after a bit of early nerves, I was convinced to give it a go, and I have to say, it was one of the triggers that wanted me to watch more classic horror films.
It's a film that ticks all the B-movie boxes to make it a classic in my mind.
Okay, get on with the gushing.
Okay, thanks. So, it was directed by one of my all-time favourites, Joe Dante, whose other work includes The Howling,
Piranha,
The Amazing Matinee, The Hole,
and one of our other favourite family films, The Burbs.
It was written by Chris Columbus. No, not that one. This one. The one who also wrote The Goonies.
And went on to direct Home Alone, Mrs. Doubtfire,
And some tiny unknown movies about a boy wizard.
The Gremlins were created by Chris Wallace,
The creature maker who would go on to create creatures for such films as The Fly, Arachnophobia. We have music by the late great Jerry Goldsmith, who was responsible for the amazing scores to Star Trek,
Poltergeist, Alien,
First Blood, and so many more.
And let's not forget, this was all overseen at a producer level by the one, the only Steven Spielberg.
He's yet to do anything significant in movies, but he's an up-and-comer, so watch out for his name. And all that talent was behind the camera. We haven't even touched on the talent in front of it yet.
So let's just rattle through this. Okay, we have Zach Gilligan, Phoebe Cates,
Hoyt Axton, and a very young Corey Feldman.
Judge Reinhold, Polly Holliday.
And, of course, what Joe Dante movie wouldn't exist without Dick Miller?
Okay, I think people get the point, we like this one. Should we do an overview in case there's one person who hasn't seen it?
Yeah, let's do it. But please, pay attention, because to survive this one, you will have to know the rules. Okay, so Gremlins. Let's give you a quick recap. For this, we need to take you back to one of the greatest years in cinema history, 1984. Yep, I said it, and I'll happily argue with anyone who disagrees.
Okay, so moving on. We begin in a very smoky Chinatown and meet Randy Peltzer, a hapless inventor looking for a last-minute Christmas gift for his son.
And like any other left it to the last minute dad does, he wanders into an old Chinese curiosity shop.
Amongst all the dusty shelves and a bit of tourist tat, he discovers a strange, unseen animal with a fantastic singing voice.
I gotta have him. He's incredible.
So without even asking about dietary requirements, vet costs and any potential dangerous traits, he buys the animal, letting him breathe a sigh of relief because his Christmas shopping is now done.
As he leaves, he's given 3 simple-to-follow rules.
Keep him out of the light. He hates bright light, especially sunlight. It'll kill him. And keep him away from water. Don't get him wet. But the most important rule, the rule you can never forget, no matter how much he cries, no matter how much he begs, never feed him after midnight.
What could possibly go wrong? It's now that we transition into Hill Valley, as Marty McFly is sent back to the...
Whoa, Herbs, this isn't Hill Valley, it's Kingston Falls. It's a full year away from being Hill Valley.
Alright.
Anyway, we're now in a very snowy Kingston Falls, USA. A very picture postcard, familiar looking, sleepy town. We meet Billy, who's late for work in the local bank, which is a place, for your younger viewers, people used to go to manage their money.
Here we meet Kate, the love interest, Barney, Billy's dog, who seems very at home at the bank, even though all the management seem to be surprised he is there, and Mrs. Deagle, our bully villain character.
With our main characters met, all that's left is to give Billy his early Christmas present.
We're gonna have to open it now. It won't wait till Christmas.
This is where we get to have our first glance at the Mogwai, in the form of our final hero, Gizmo.
You're kidding.
At this point, it's a helpful time to remind people of the rules, because within the first minute of ownership, they break Rule 1.
You know, there's some things I forgot to tell you guys, and they're really important. Number one, he hates bright lights. We know that. But you gotta keep him out of the sunlight. Sunlight will kill him. Number two, keep him away from water. Don't give him any water to drink. And whatever you do, don't give him a bath. And probably the most important thing, don't ever feed him after midnight.
Okay, so Billy, now like any other responsible new pet owner, becomes engrossed in finding all about its origins, its natural habitat, and its diet.
Well, actually, he teaches it about comic books, movies, makes Gizmo sing for him, and puts a funny Christmas hat on it. And it is during this Christmas hat dress-up party that rule number 1 is broken again. Twice. He literally, minutes after the bright light incident, while trying to care for Gizmo, exposed him to a second, brighter light.
With Gizmo all patched up, it's time for them to call it a night. So they all fall asleep, just one man, his dog, and his concussed mini Ewok.
The following day we meet Pete, played by a very young Corey Feldman, who is delivering the Peltzer's Christmas tree, while dressed as a tree.
And while demonstrating to Pete Gizmo's musical abilities, we get to find out what happens if you break rule number 2.
Who's in that jar?
Nothing, just water.
Leaving you with lots of questions about the original natural habitats for these creatures. It had to be somewhere cool enough for them to require fur, but dry enough that they wouldn't have to worry about rain.
Anyway, now we have...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new ones.
Thanks, Corey. These new Mogwai are not like Gizmo, being noisy, mischievous, and defo not as innocent as Gizmo is.
With a new group of Mogwai introduced, all that's left is for us to discover what happens if we break rule number 3.
But thankfully, Billy's not going to be that reckless.
See? You check the time.
Wow, they're hungry. And now they're cocoons.
We didn't break rule number 3, did we?
Yep, we broke rule number 3.
Mom, what's going on here?
So just like a caterpillar to a butterfly, feeding them after midnight turns them into something else.
Unfortunately, what they turn into isn't as delicate as a butterfly, but more like a pack of wild monsters with no moral code and a Bugs Bunny sense of dress-up comedy.
This is where the humour in the movie really comes out.
And this isn't any more on view than in the bar scene, where rather than just sit terrorising the bar, they take over it and choose to lampoon the usual occupants.
With the Gremlins running rampage, I don't want to spoil too much, but it's up to Billy, Kate and Gizmo to save Kingston Falls before it's totally overrun.
And what follows is a perfect collection of Gremlins gags, actual dangerous situations for our heroes, and more beautiful singing.
With everything wrapped up nicely and Gizmo put back into the protective custody, it's left to Randy Peltzer to give the final important message to the audience.
Turn on all the lights, check all the closets and cupboards, look under all the beds, because you never can tell. There just might be a gremlin in your house.
Let's start with rewatchability.
So I love this film and I've seen it many a time. I watch it every Christmas, every summer, every Easter and any other time of the year really. So rewatching a big 7 out of 7.
Well, it's no secret I've seen this movie more than I'd ever be able to guess. It's the kind of movie that when special screenings come on at the local cinema, I cancel things so I can go. So it's a big 7 out of 7 for me. Next up, we have VFX.
The VFX are incredible, and that comes down to the awesome Gizmo and Stripe puppets. They look so cool and fun, but hard to operate, and wow, that pays off here. So 6 out of 7.
Okay, I'm going to mark this one high, but I feel I need to explain why. I know the Gremlins puppets sometimes just look like, well, puppets. And I know there are 1 or 2 animated moments that could be better, but for me, they add to the charm of this film. And it's exactly because of the puppets like these that I wanted to get into movies in the first place. It's another 7 out of 7 for me. Okay, on to our section on scariness.
Now, this isn't a very scary film, but when I first watched it, I saw the Gremlin pop out of the first aid cupboard, and that really scared me. And now, every time I watch the film, I think of that jump scare and how much of an impact it had on me. 4 out of 7.
I hate that we have to judge this one on scariness, because even when I first saw it in the 80s, it wasn't that scary to me. I can see how some of the younger viewers could get scared, but I'm afraid for me, this is where I'm going to mark it down. Just a 4 out of 7 for me. Okay, so how was it on a humour, fun level?
Now, on humour, this is a very funny film, but I somehow can't describe why. I've seen it hundreds of times, and I still laugh and smile at the same jokes every time, and that just goes to show how funny this movie is. 7 out of 7.
After the brief blip on scariness, it manages to redeem itself on this category. It was never a laugh-out-loud straight comedy, but it's always been a fun movie to watch that makes you smile whenever you see it. Back to 7 out of 7 for me.
Okay, for this film, you could say some of the puppets are a bit rubbery and some of the stop motion looks a bit fake. But in the grand scheme of things, does it matter? You'll still be engrossed in everything else. 6 out of 7.
Well, I hear the comments about the puppets, the plot holes regarding the rules, and some of the questionable screenwriting. But for me, the movie takes you in for the duration. You don't really notice these things. It's only afterwards when some party pooper says, "But what time can they start eating again?" that you start thinking of plot holes. Up until then, you're watching, you're sucked in. So I'm sorry, this is another 7 out of 7. And finally, what are your overall thoughts?
Well, I think you know how I feel about this one, and I could go on for hours about how I love it, but it's a 10-minute long video, so 7 out of 7.
Call me biased, but to me it's a nearly perfect movie, and I love pretty much every aspect of it, so it's going to be another 7 out of 7. And what are the final totals? Debbie?
So my total was 37 out of 42.
And for me, it's a 39 out of 42. Pretty high scores, straight to the top of our leaderboard, and I suspect it'll stay there for a while, at least until our next special.
So that was the end of our first special. Possibly not the most critical review, but it's our show, we had fun making it. And what a great way to end our year of movie watching.
Join us next time to see what else we have in store as we delve back into the world of classic horror cinema.
Until then, it's goodbye for now.